Hi everybody, welcome back to another Metallica song tutorial. Here's another one off of the Master of Puppets album called The Thing That Should Not Be. The first thing I want to address with this song is the tuning, because it's not in drop D like I see a lot of people playing it, and I think that probably stems from, way back in the day when the official tab book came out. They had that it transcribed in drop D, so that's probably still kind of with us today, but it is just a standard tune guitar down a whole step, right? So what that means is we're just going to take all of our strings, tune everyone down a whole step. The E goes down to a D, the A goes down to a G, D down to a C, G to an F, the B goes down to an A, and then the high E down to another D. So from low to high, we have D, G, C, F, A, and D. Okay, so tune up, and then you can play this right along with me. And let's get going. The first thing that you hear is this. Right, and then the distortion kicks in. So we got a clean tone happening here, and pretty simple to pull off if you've been following along with the other Metallica tutorials that I put out. As far as Metallica's early stuff goes, this one's quite simple compared to a lot of it. Not a lot of fast down picking or anything going on with the right hand. So what we're going to do is start with an open E power chord to an F sharp on the second fret there of the low string. And I know that technically this would be a D power chord to an E because we're a whole step down, but let's just refer to everything as if we were in standard. Makes it nice and simple. So E to F sharp, and we're going to do that 3 times. The third time, we're going to drop to our second finger on the 3rd fret of the A, and then we kind of pedal off of that low F sharp. Come back to that F sharp, go back up to the 4th fret of the A string, and then the 5th fret of the A string. So we're just moving that note on the A string along. And then we repeat that whole thing. And then the distortion kicks in, and it goes like this. Okay, so we're repeating the same thing 4 times here. And we're starting with an E power chord again. Hit that twice to an F and an F sharp on the 1st and 2nd fret. Then jump up to the 3rd fret on the A string, C power chord. Okay, then we've got some big hops here. Pedaling off of that F sharp again. So you want to jump back to that F sharp on the 2nd fret of the low string. Jump up to the C sharp on the 4th fret of the A string. Back to that F sharp. And jump all the way up to the 5th fret of the A, that D. So that's a nice big jump there, right? So we hit that D one more time and slide it, and then we can repeat. Okay, now the only thing I should mention is on the album, the recording, the first time that we hit the C, that 3rd fret on the A, we hit it twice. And then the rest of the rotations is just once. Okay, and then after that riff plays 4 times, we have another riff that comes in and just plays twice, but it's very, very similar. It goes like this. Okay, so again, we start that riff the same, 2 hits on E, F, F sharp, up to that 3rd fret C on A. Now, instead of just jumping back to the F sharp up to the 4th fret, F sharp up to the 5th fret, we're gonna come down to the 1st fret and we walk into that F sharp. And then jump, and then. So we're going 1st fret, 2nd fret now in between each hop. And then we go 1st fret, 2nd fret, and then we can repeat. And then we get into our next riff. But I'm just gonna put the whole song together so far, what we've got here, and I'll put it to some scrolling tab for you so that you can play the whole thing along with me before we get into that next riff. Here we go. And now a little bit slower for you. And then we get into the next riff, which is also the pre-chorus riff, and it goes like this. Okay, now let's spend a little bit of time on this riff because there's a couple of options here for you. But also I want you to be able to wrap your head around this riff, because really what we're doing is we're taking this minor bar chord form and we're sliding it to different positions. Okay, and if we took this minor bar chord and we lifted our pinky, we have a minor seventh. Okay, so as you'll see, the notes that we're playing, it's kind of a interesting, unique way of implying a minor seventh in a metal song. Okay, so what we're gonna do, instead of just barring this straight bar chord, we're going to actually wrap our thumb around and fret the root. So in this case, we're fretting the 7th fret on the bottom string with our thumb. And then we're going to wrap our first finger around, we're really only concerned with the D and the G strings. So you wanna bar the D and the G at the 7th fret. And now this is where I see a lot of people just using their pinky for this to form the rest of this chord, but any live footage that you watch, you'll be able to clearly see that both Kirk and James use their 3rd finger and their pinky in this chord form. So what we want to do is put our 3rd finger down on the 9th fret of A and our pinky down on the 9th fret of D. Okay, now what we're going to do is start by putting a palm mute on and chugging 4 hits on the lower 2 or 3 strings. Okay, now we lift the 3rd and the pinky off and get those barred 7th frets on the D and the G that we have with our first finger, okay? And take your palm mute off so that pops. Come back to the palm muted power chord on the bottom couple strings, and then back to the stab. So we have, okay? Then we're gonna take that whole rhythmic figure, just take the whole chord shape, move it down to the 3rd fret, okay? But we're going to actually start with the stab this time. So slightly different rhythm than we had up here, right? We're starting with that stab, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. But the same thing, just toggle your 3rd finger and your pinky off of the A and the D when you go for that stab. Okay, so putting those 2 measures together, we have this. Now we're gonna take that rhythmic figure that we just had on the 3rd fret, just slide it up 1 fret to the 4th fret and do it again. Then we're gonna finish off by going down to the 1st fret, but we're gonna have this. Okay, so there's a quick little double hit on that stab. So the barred 1st frets that we have on the D and the G, do a little down up there. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 as we get into our verse, okay? So that's just, that's the only stab there, a quick down up, and then the rest is just eighth note chugging. Okay? And so I'll just quickly play that for you slow now that we went through it, and then I'll give you a couple of options for this, and we'll go through exact ways that they sometimes play this live. So here it goes. Okay, now the first option that I want to discuss with you is getting that first chord, because we're coming out of this riff. Okay, and then it can be pretty hard to go from that riff, jump with your thumb coming around directly into that new chord shape, right? And a lot of times they don't do it. I have seen them jump directly there, but more often than not, they go like this. They delay that thumb wrapping around for the first half of a measure. So they fret it conventionally for 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. That's where, right? So those first 2 beats are just a conventional power chord before they make the hop. Okay, so that might make that a little bit easier for you. Gives you a little bit of time to think rather than just having to make that hop right away. Now the other point in the riff where there's a little bit of divergence from how Hammett plays it versus Hetfield is that final measure where we're on the first fret. How I showed you, that's how Hammett plays it. He just keeps that chord shape with his thumb wrapped over, does a little down up. Okay, but Hetfield, he does a double down actually. And then he goes to a conventional power chord like that, okay? So both ways are right. I'll just give the riff a quick play with those new fingerings, and you can pick whatever feels more comfortable for you, but both of them are correct. And I see both James and Kirk, you know, playing those parts slightly different. So here it is. Okay, and then we're into the verse. The intro is done, we're into the verse. And the verse is just, you know, combinations of all of those riffs that we've already learned. And the next part is the chorus. So I'll give the chorus a play for you, and then we'll break that down. And then we're out of that into, you know, that riff that we've already encountered. Okay, so the chorus is quite simple to pull off if you're familiar with octave shapes. Getting those octaves, a nice clean octave, is probably the hardest part. So what you're going to do is fret the B, second fret of the A string, and pinky on the 4th fret of G. So you have to make sure that the D string in between is dead. So you just have 2 B notes an octave apart. Slide that up 1/2 step to the 3rd fret, so you're on 3 and 5. Okay, so then we get into this next part. All right, and that's super easy. Just palm mute the open A and D, then 2 hits on the barred first frets of A and D, back to those open strings palm mutes, and then that 1st fret again before we're sliding to an E power chord, okay? So it's... And then we just repeat, there's a funky little measure of 2/4 before we go back into those octaves again. 1 and 2 and 1. Okay, so you can count that as a measure of 6/4 or sneak a bar of 2/4 in there. I prefer the 2/4. So I would count it like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, right? It's this quick little 2 in there. Then we just repeat that all over again. Now, repeat those octaves. We're going to tack on 2 new octaves, one on the first fret of the low string. So you've got 1 on the E string, 3 on the D string, back up to the starting one on 2 and 4. Okay, and that's the whole chorus. And then we just get out of that with that riff that we already encountered in the intro. So there's the chorus. I'll just play it slower for you, and then we will move on. Okay, and now we've covered all of the riffs up to the guitar solo, and underneath the guitar solo is really just the chorus riff, but I'll play that for you as well as the bridge section that happens right after the solo, and then we'll break it down. So the riff underneath the solo is really just the chorus riff, but as some of you may have noticed by following along with the tab, it has been displaced by a couple of beats. So I don't want to waste a lot of time on this because it really is just the same riff, but let's just quickly cover the concept. So going back to the chorus, we have these octaves, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then that next riff kicks in on a beat 1 and 2 and 3 and right? Now underneath the solo, we're coming out of that second chorus. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1. Okay, so we're actually starting that riff on a beat 3. And if you listen to the drum fills and the phrasing of the guitar solo, that's the way it is. So they're feeling that riff slightly different for the guitar solo. Okay, now, but you know, for all intents and purposes, it is the same riff. Let's move on to the bridge section. Okay, so that whole thing. Now what we're doing there, stab the barred second frets on A and D. Now walk up 3, 5 on the low string and 2 on the A string. Okay, so, okay, now that, I see a lot of people playing that 5th fret as an open A because it's the same pitch. You could play it like this. Open A. Right, but if you watch live footage again, it's clear that they're playing that out there on the 5th fret. Okay, so that's where I've chosen to put it in my transcription and how I'm showing you. Okay, so now we do a quick little 3, 2 on the A string, down to 3 on the G string, and then 3, 2 again on A. And then we repeat this, but this time we're going to go all on the A string, 5, 3, 2, 3, 2. Okay. Okay, so I'll put those 2 measures together for you. Do that octave on 2 and 3. Now we have another figure. Okay, so that starts off the same again. That stab, But now from that point, we go 2 on the D string, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2 on that A string. Right? And it's all just 3 and 2 on the A, except for that 1 second fret on the D string. And then we just go through the octaves as we end the chorus. 2 and 3, coming down to the first fret there on the low string, back up to our starting octave. Okay, so that whole thing nice and slow for you. And that's all the rhythm, guys. The outro of the song is the only other thing that I'll quickly touch on. Again, though, we've covered all these elements, nothing new. You just have to put them together in the right order. But the final outro is just coming out of the chorus riff. So we've got those octaves. And then, you know, just that chorus chugging there till it fades out. So all that is we got those quick octaves. And then we throw in that one rhythmic figure from the bridge, the third one. So that's going the 3, 5 on the low string, up to the second fret A, on the second fret on A, and then that second fret on D. And then 3, 2, 3, 2 on A, right? And then is just directly into. Okay, so the outro kind of pieced together for you goes like this, nice and slow. And so on until the track fades out. And that is it. So not a lot of rhythm parts there, right? A kind of an easy one as far as the Metallica's earlier stuff goes. But let's tackle the solo, and I'll give it a quick play for you and then we'll break it down. Here we go. Okay, so there's the solo. As you can see, it's a fairly short one and a lot of whammy bar work, so you'll want to make sure you've got a floating trem for this. You'll also want to click your wah pedal on. Now, let's get right into this. We're going to start on the B string between 14 and 17, and we're just going to trill those 2 notes. Okay, and as you trill those, you're going to dip and raise the bar. Okay, and after a couple of beats, you'll just start dipping the bar further and further and kind of decreasing the pitch. Okay, you get out of that by sliding up to the 21st fret and give it a wide shake with the bar. Okay, so we've got this. And then we have this. Okay, so what we have is 16, 13, and 12 on the high string. And you're just going to pick once and then pull off. And you're going to do that repeatedly. We proceed the whole thing though with a quick little trem pick on the 12th fret. And we get out of that by bending the 15th fret on B and releasing it and giving it some vibrato. Okay, so, you know, if for curiosity's sake, if you're curious about that scale that he's using, it's really the E Phrygian dominant scale, which is the 5th mode of A harmonic minor, right? So you have that A harmonic minor, but we're resolving to E. All right, so you get that little snake charmer sound. But yeah, you've got that figure for about 6 beats. getting out of it with that bend. So let's just put the first little bit together. It goes like this. Okay, now we've got this. Okay, pretty simple to pull off. We can just basically use 2 fingers. We're going to play 11 and 12 on G, B, and the high E string. And then do a little hammer pull on the 11, 12, 11 there on the B, on the E string. And then come back down to B, 12, 11. Then 13, 12 on G. 14, 13 on D. 15, 14 on A. And then there's a little hammer out onto the 16th fret of the low E string, back to 15. Okay, now that is a harmonized line. That's the part that he plays live, and he doesn't play it exactly like he'd played it on the album live, but that's the gist of it. That's the part that he plays live. But on the album, it's harmonized, and we have this on the album. Okay, it's a slightly different pattern, but you know, pretty much the same. We're gonna go 15, 16 on G and B. Come back to 14, 15 on the high string with that little hammer pull. Back down to 16, 15 on B. Then 17, 16 on G. 18, 17 on D. 19, 18 on A. And then you can do that little hammer onto 20, back to 19 on the low E string. Okay, now on the recording, it sounds like there's a little slide before he hits open G and dives that. And then he goes back to this 16, 13, 12 pull off. And wraps it up a little bit different than before. So we're going to go 16, 13, 12. Just like before. And we're going to start diving the bar. Just gradually push it down. Okay, and then on the recording, if you want to get super technical, you hear that pull off 7 times. And then we're going to slide into 15 on B, down to 14 on G. And when you hit that 14 on G, you can use the blade of your hand and really, you know, do a pretty aggressive, crazy vibrato on it, and then it'll sound like the album. Okay, so let's put the whole solo together nice and slow for you. It goes like this. Okay, so that's the main solo. Now let's talk about what I would call solo 2. It's not really a solo though, it's just a bunch of sound effects. But after the bridge section, we get back into this one riff. Right, and that plays 4 times. And then over top of that, there's a bunch of, you know, sort of ethereal, eerie sound effects. Now, it's not entirely possible to even recreate that because, in my opinion, there's 2 guitars, maybe 3 going on in there. Who knows, maybe more, but they've layered everything up to make it sound that way on the album. But if you're playing this live and you're just wanting ideas to get it performance ready, we can go through a few things. So I'll just play something. You know, a lot of these are sounds that you hear on the album, and then we'll just break it down. Okay, so there that is. Now, it sounds like on the album, it might start with a little slide, but we're gonna bend that 17th fret on B, and it's even cool too if you can snag the G string underneath the B string, so you're kind of bending two strings at once. That sounds cool. Okay, now another thing he does is he comes into the 13th fret, kind of dives it with the bar, then the 14th fret, kind of dips it. And something, this really reminds me of the sound effects that he created at the end of For Whom the Bell Tolls, right? So you can go watch my tutorial on that too for more ideas that create these kind of eerie sounds. But one thing that I've noticed is to kind of keep the sound really liquid, the tones liquid, right? Like, don't really nail any pitch. You kind of just keep them, you know, going in and out, and that makes it sound really eerie. Like for instance, when we slide into the 13th fret, we don't really ever hear that pitch. It's kind of, you know, I bend it a little sharp even, like he's got it. Then when you go up to the 14th fret, right? Again, just like never really nail any specific pitch, just kind of keep it, you know, fluid. Now, there's also some underlying rumbling on the album too. Like that's why kind of a dead giveaway there was some overdubbing going on, right? Like you hear this slack going on and low rumbling on the you know, low down. And then he really likes to hang out on this 20th fret. Just doing that sort of stuff. So you can just, you know, do randomly pitched bends on that 20th fret. Use the bar to get it a little bit crazier even. You know, he likes to do that live even, just hanging out on that 20th fret and creating some pretty cool stuff there. So, you know, live, he doesn't really play it the same way ever twice. Sometimes I see him get pretty notey with it. He's bending a lot of notes, but to keep it the way it is on the album, you want it pretty sparse, just long held notes, slow dives on the bar, and you'll be able to create something pretty cool. So hopefully that helps you get through that and you'll be able to get it performance ready. Now let's move on to the last thing that we have to talk about. It's the very outro of the song where that chorus riff kicks back in, and that's the one that goes. Right, that's the one that we're chugging on till fade out. But Hammett does something over top of that that's pretty neat and pretty integral to that part too. It's very recognizable, right? And if it's not there, you'd probably notice. So you're gonna wanna click a wah on for this. And the easiest way to do this, you're gonna pump the wah really slow. You're not gonna rock it in time. It's just kind of sweeping through the frequencies on your wah. And then you're just going to mute the strings off with your fretting hand. You could even place your palm down on those. And as you're slowly sweeping the wah, you're just gonna chuck on the dead strings. Right? I'm sure you recognize that part from the recording. So that's how you pull that part off. And there's all the parts to the songs, guys. I hope that this answered all of the questions you had to this classic tune. It's, you know, as far as early Metallica goes, it's not too tough. Has some pretty cool stuff in there though, like some whammy bar challenge with the solo and with the eerie effects there in that second little solo. So get practicing, and I'll see you for another lesson really soon.